guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. If I look tired, it's because it's the middle of the night and I'm editing videos. And I'm just about to edit the Paul Green video, which you're about to see. And I just wanted to record a few seconds of footage to put at the beginning, just to explain something to you. Paul Green is somebody I have massive respect for many different reasons. His DVD, In the Trenches, literally changed the way that I looked at close-up magic. This guy is phenomenal. And I've been wanting to get him on the channel for a while to do an interview because I think a lot of people will really benefit from hearing from him for a variety of different reasons that I don't really want to go into. The only way I could get Paul to appear on the channel is with audio only and not video, which is something I've never done before on a Talk Magic. Part of it is the visual aspect of seeing the person interviewed. Now, obviously, it goes on the Talk Magic podcast later on as an audio file, but on YouTube, it's all about visual. However, Paul, I made the exception for. Because it's really important to me that I get him on the channel and all of the subscribers to Magic TV hear what he's got to say. So this is going to be probably the only ever audio only Talk Magic interview. Paul Green is a legend. Hopefully that all makes sense. I'm going to run the interview now, and thanks very much for checking out Magic TV. Hey guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It is 9 o'clock, which means it's time for a Talk Magic. And today I am here with somebody I've spoken about on the channel an awful lot. Somebody who I consider to be the quintessential perfect close-up magician. Somebody who is the absolute definition of been there, done that, bought the t-shirt, an incredible performer, and a person who I think released one of the most influential DVDs on performing commercial close-up magic, and just an all-around really nice guy as well. I am, of course, talking about the legend himself, Paul Green. How you doing, Paul?
I'm fantastic, Craig. I'm not sure I can live up to that introduction, though.
It's all true. It's all true.
Quintessential close-up performer. Are we talking about Albert Goshman?
No, I'm talking about you. I remember when I first watched In the Trenches, and up until that point, nothing had really kind of hit me. And it was when I watched that and I saw how you approach close-up magic and some of the plots and some of the routines and the ways that you'd taken things and completely turned it on its head, that kind of it had a really big influence on my career. And I have recommended that DVD to so many people over the years. It's incredible, and you know what you've done with, you know, and we'll talk about all of this, but what you've done and what you've released and what you've produced, and you know, we talked earlier on off camera a couple of days ago about your contributions in the Magic menu. You're just a wealth of knowledge, and you understand the right way to perform close-up magic, and I think you're brilliant. So it's only my opinion, but
thanks, and I appreciate that. But it's the way I approach it. It works for me. I'm not sure it will work for everyone else, but it certainly does work for me.
Absolutely. And I want to talk about everything. I want to talk about your approach to close-up magic. I want to talk about absolutely everything. But for people who haven't really heard of Paul Green before, would it be okay if we kind of provide a bit of backstory for people and talk about kind of where you came from, how you got into magic, your origin story, so to speak? Would that be okay?
Sure.
Amazing. So I suppose the first question is, when did you get into magic, Paul? Was it your typical coin behind an ear uncle story, or was there a bit more to it? When did the magic bug bite you?
I was 7 or 8 years old, and my brother, who's 3 years my senior, had the shoebox of magic. And like most 10-year-olds, he was interested in it for approximately 2 weeks. And then he gave it to me, and I decided to stick with it.
Wow.
So, it was a wonderful awakening for me, and it was something I could do well. It's something I enjoyed, and it made me different. Adults took more notice of me, and I was always much more comfortable with adults than I was with kids my own age, my peers. socially backwards, so to speak. Uh, so magic gave me a mask to put on, and I hid behind it for an awfully long time. I still hide. So, it's been something that I've done. I mean, I remember my first trick. My first trick was the bashful lock, the lock that opened behind your back. And
Oh
it was
wow! I don't think I've even heard of that one.
it was in every slum catalog in the world. It was an SS Adams trick, and precursor to the gravity lock.
Oh yes, the gravity lock I know. And so was there a period of time in school where you kind of fell out? Because I've spoken to so many people on these interviews, and a lot of people say, I got into magic when I was 7 or 8 years old. I then found girls and I left magic for a while and I come back to it later on when I'm older. Was that the case with you, or were you kind of just full on magic from that point on? You wanted to learn, you wanted to immerse yourself in it. Was it?
I I pretty much was a magician from that moment on. It's part of what I define myself as. And yes, there was a moment or two when girls came up and, uh, oh, gee, Paul, you're the nerdy magician guy. Uh, yeah, thanks, but take a card anyway. So, I sort of went beyond that. And I worked my way through college with it. I did magic even when I started working full time for a moment or two. And later in life, I was a substitute teacher for the school system, which allowed me to work and take time off if I needed to. If I needed to take 2 weeks off, I certainly could do that. Um, and I did magic for the kids, and it was the carrot and the stick.
Yeah.
So, if you kids behave, I'll do a trick for you.
Wow. Okay, that's really interesting. Now, before you got to that point, let me ask you a question because I want to backtrack slightly here. When did you do your first paid show? Was it just a hobby when you were in school and college and so on and so forth, or were you going
No,
out doing
no,
paid shows
I
as well?
no, I did paid gigs when I was around 8. I did my first paid gig. It was for my aunt, and my cousin was turning 3 years old, and she had a birthday party for him in the park, and I did that birthday party. And the story goes that unfortunately my aunt's purse was stolen during the party, but I still got paid anyway.
Oh wow. Oh my gosh.
A whole whopping $3.
Hey, you were making the big bucks.
That's it.
So you were doing paid shows all the way from 8 years old. So
Yes.
did you get to a point when so obviously you came out of school, you went to college or university. Was there a point where you kind of thought, well, you talked about how you went into as a substitute teacher. Was there a point where you kind of went, well, okay, I've done education, I've got that under my belt. Now let's go full time.
No, no, I was pretty much full time even through college. I was doing larger shows. I never, again, close up shows and parlor type shows. I never really did grand illusions. Um, and that's fine with me. I don't do well on stage like that,
Mhm.
working with assistants and things like that. Um, at one point, I wanted to run away and join the circus, like some of my friends. Bob Sheets was one of them. Um, very well known magician. He joined the circus, and if I had not met my wife at that time, she wasn't my wife at that time, I would have gone to the circus.
Oh wow,
So
wow.
she
So,
prevented me from doing that.
oh my gosh. Well, wow, that's amazing. I didn't even know that. That's cool. So when did you kind of make that decision? So you're doing substitute teaching, which is a great gig because it's giving you the time that you need to go and take the time off to do the various shows that you're getting booked in. When did you get to a point where you kind of thought to yourself, you know what, I don't need this teaching thing anymore. I can just work as a full-time magician and sustain, a level of income that I'm happy with? Was there a
I I only worked as a substitute teacher basically for a benefits package.
Mhm,
So I got my medical and dental for myself, my wife, my child.
mhm.
Uh, and the rest of my income came from doing magic. And it was everything from uh, trade show work to cruise work, street work. I literally have appeared and done almost every venue possible, minus Grand Illusion.
Wow. Okay, that's amazing. Um,
I'll get
back
good enough soon.
well, backtracking slightly before we move on with the rest of your career, I want to ask you another question. Obviously, for those people that don't know, you were born and raised on the West Coast,
California, Los Angeles.
California, Los Angeles, which means you are near the Magic Castle.
Yes, indeed.
Did you? How big an influence? Because I know that you're a regular performer at the Magic Castle now. How big an influence was the Magic Castle to you when you were growing up in Magic? Because I've never been there, unfortunately. I don't know. Are you allowed to go in as a kid, or was it like, did you get to a certain age before you could go there? And kind of when you went there, was that an influence to your Magic?
Well, I started taking Genie magazine in 1963. And that was just about the time that the Magic Castle was beginning to form itself. And I was very, very fortunate. I was part of the Dante Magic Club in the San Fernando Valley. And we had Bill Larson Jr. come to my home and do a lecture on Genie Magazine. And he invited all of us and our families because it was for 21 plus, unless there were special arrangements made, to come to the Magic Castle. My family went to the Magic Castle along with all the other club members and their parents. And I knew that I had to become part of that organization, part of that place that really became the capital of magic in the world.
Yeah. And so when did you officially sort of join, so to speak? Was it, how old were you
I
when you?
started working in 1968 when I was 18.
Okay.
Uh,
You started
Bill,
working, so you started working
yes,
at the castle.
yes. Bill, again, very fortunate. Bill asked me to work, even though I wasn't 21. Don't ask, don't tell. And I worked. And then I became an official member in 1971.
Wow, that's incredible. That's absolutely fantastic. So, you were getting to perform at the age of 18 in one of the most prestigious magic venues in the world. Um, and obviously, the Magic Castle, for those people that don't know, it has a lot of high-profile guests coming in on a very regular basis. Um, is that something that was kind of nerve-wracking to you, or because you'd grown up in magic, was this kind of second nature and not an issue?
I I was always nervous before, before performing, but we all have butterflies. And I always assumed that the other magicians that were there watching, those people weren't going to hire me anyway. So I didn't work for the other magicians. I've never been. I don't think I've ever been considered a magician's magician, like Daryl, or like Bruce Servan, for that matter. I was always a magician. I consider myself what I call a journeyman magician.
Yeah.
Uh, a journeyman magician is somebody that knows the craft, knows it well. Certainly not a master magician, although one of my business cards did say that when I was a kid, like most kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
I took 2 lessons and I know how to hold the deck of cards. I'm a master magician.
Actually, while I'm on this subject, before we move on, this is the question that comes up on this channel more than probably any other question, which is how to deal with nerves. Now, you've been performing at a very high level from a very young age. You know, just performing in the Magic Castle in front of like the who's who in magic, and it's a very stressful situation. Do you have any advice on dealing with nerves? Because it's the worst thing, isn't it, for a magician when they start getting nervous, they put themselves in a situation where they know they have to perform, and then shaky hands. It just affects absolutely everything. And I've seen some incredible magicians really get affected by that sort of thing. Is
Well,
there any?
I think that one has to think about who they are as a performer. Who am I working for? Uh, what is my character? And even though I'm an everyman, I'm not a gambler. I'm not a huckster. I'm not a wizard. Uh, I'm I'm me, and you
Yeah,
have to be comfortable with who you are. I certainly can do all the slights. Technically speaking, I'm up there with a lot of people. Although there are a lot of people that I admire that have great technique, but watching them perform is like watching paint dry, you know? So being a performer means that you have to have that ability to have practiced so that you know what you're doing. I used to tell people that when I was strolling, doing magic from my pockets, mingle magic, I think you call it in the UK.
makes it.
Um,
Yeah,
I know where everything is in my pockets. I know where everything is so that if I am about to do a trick and I need a sponge ball, I know where it is. If I need a copper silver coin, I know where it is. If I have to separate, a specific deck of cards that I'm utilizing for something that's set up, I know where that is.
yeah,
So with confidence, I know where my props are. With confidence, I know what I'm going to say.
yeah,
With confidence, I know what I'm going to wear. With confidence and with asking the questions beforehand of who am I, what am I doing, what do I want the audience to take away from me?
yeah,
And I think that's the most important question. What do you want an audience to, what's the experience you want an audience to walk away with? Gee, he wasn't very educated. Gee, he had dirty hands. Gosh, he was a lot of fun to talk with. I'd like to share a beer with him. You know, those are the kinds of things that people need to think about. I think that most younger performers and inexperienced performers, because inexperienced performers don't have to be young, I think that they have no concept of what it means to perform, and
yeah,
that's what makes them nervous.
yeah.
And I
That's
used to stand in the green room, it's my room at the Magic Castle, behind the curtains, and I would bounce up and down, and I would pump myself up, ready to go through those curtains, knowing that from the moment that they said my name and I walked out, people were going to start judging me as to what kind of a performer I was.
yeah,
So I was prepared.
yeah. That's really good advice. That really is. I suppose it all comes down to flight time, doesn't it, Paul? Like, I mean, you talk about people, inexperienced magicians not knowing, not knowing about performance, and I totally understand that. I mean, really, I mean, it's flight time, isn't it? The more that you can go out there, and the more sort of experience that you can have performing, the better you're going to be, right? And the less nervous.
Right. Right. And it really does come, the cliche is to become an expert, you have to do something 10,000 times.
Yeah,
So, whether it's a double lift or whether it's a coin palm or just saying your name to be as an introduction to who you are, those things need to be practiced. Those things need to be um, thought of and rehearsed. I make a distinction between practice and rehearsing. So we can talk about that later if you'd like.
yeah, I'd love to. That'd
And
be great.
it's eh, you have to learn how to fall down because then you can get yourself back up.
Yeah,
So Every time I work, including every show I do at the Magic Castle and every show where I'm out, I learn something new. There's always a way to improve it.
And I think that's the key. I think it's fine to fail as long as you fail forwards.
Hmm.
People are scared of failing, so they never put themselves out there. But if you put yourself out there, you're always going to fail at something at some point. But it's about learning from that experience and making sure it doesn't happen again, right?
I think so as well.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Um, on the subject of the castle, obviously, when you started going at the age of 18, you were going to be at the castle at the same time as people like Charlie Miller and Di Vernon, and some of the people that we consider to be the absolute greats of magic.
Well, people of a certain age think of those people as the icons of magic.
Right.
Believe it or not, there are people that don't know who Di Vernon is. There are people that don't know who Charlie Miller is. Now, you and I care about the art a tremendous amount, and we know that we stand upon the shoulders of those that came before us. But there are people today that don't know these icons. The icons are modern day people. So you've got people like Dynamo in the UK. You've got people like Chris Angel. You have people like David Copperfield, Michael Lamar, because he's well known. Daryl, to a certain extent, was well known. Jeff McBride. But outside of the magic community, those people don't really exist.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I'm not famous. I'm famous. I'm famous for a couple things, one of which I got caught doing, so I'm not doing it anymore.
I don't know what that is.
I know, I know that's a non sequitur that makes me more interesting.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And you are absolutely right. I mean, when I've always talked about we stand on the shoulders of giants, and it's really important to study the work of people that have come before us. One of the most important things in my collection is bound I have bound leather volumes of every single edition of the Abracadabra magazine that came out ever since the very first one in the 1960s, right up until when it finished in I think the 2000s or something. And I'll go back into my library and I'll read these from years and years and years ago, and I'll look at a routine, and it's better than anything that's come out these days. And I'll learn it and I'll perform it to somebody and look, oh, that's amazing. That's unbelievable. Where can you learn that from? I'm like, well, you can learn it from Abracadabra from the 1970 edition. And I think that people are so desperate to learn the latest trick, thinking that the latest trick is going to make them famous, whilst in actual fact, uh, there is no one trick to make you famous. Some of the best material is material that got published 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago.
Well, again, the old cliche is that if you want to hide something in magic, publish it.
Yeah.
And people don't read anymore, and people don't go back. Billy McComb was an advocate of that, of always going back to some of the old material. I mean, he was published in Abracadabra, the Gen magazine, another English publication that was just filled with awesome, awesome material. That's how I became acquainted with Ken Brook, who was really a major, major mentor for me. Um, and getting magic from across the pond was really, as a kid, was just I'd wait by the mailbox.
Yeah.
So it's it's a good idea to review, go back and read some of the old material. And again, you'll find plot lines, you'll find techniques and methods that have gone by the wayside, but they're really fabulous. They're really wonderful. And if you think about it, everything that we're doing today magically historically existed before.
Yeah.
And things that we look at, and you're right, again, the immature performer wants to get the newest, greatest. And when you have the definition of a professional as opposed to an amateur works for his friends, so he has to have new material all the time. Professional works for a whole bunch of different people with the same material, so he or she does not have to change material all that often.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very, 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 very true. It really is. It really, really is. Um, Before we move off the castle, I mentioned Vernon and Miller, and obviously that's what took us down this route of speaking about them and the greats of magic. But what was your personal experience of being in the castle around those people? Because we read stories about Vernon being very opinionated and shooting people down and telling people that, oh, this trick's terrible, this trick's awful. Um, that must be a very, I mean, was that something that you found, and was it very stressful being in front of these magicians that have been heralded as like the greats at the time?
Well,
Or
when I auditioned for membership at the Magic Castle, we had Friday lunches and we were able to do our auditions in the middle. There was a pro worker at 1 o'clock and at 2 o'clock and at 1:30. That's when auditions took place. And that's what happened with me. And sitting in my audience in the front row, Di Vernon, Charlie Miller, Francis Carlyle, the Senator Crandall. I mean, these were the names of people that I read about that I held in the highest esteem, uh, and I went out there and I did it. So, again, being prepared,
yeah,
scared,
absolutely.
scared spitless.
Well, I can imagine. I can imagine. Oh my gosh, just walking out and seeing that group of people in the front row. My gosh, that must have been nerve-wracking. Oh my god.
Well, I was
Um,
very fortunate because Vernon took a liking to me. I was on the periphery of the underground because I was a working pro, even at that age. Um, I never tried to fool other magicians. I just tried to do my magic better than most magicians. Um, and again, I was very fortunate that Charlie Miller took a liking to me, and I remember showing Charlie things, and he would uh, he would stand behind me and he'd say, "Do it again," and then he'd stand to my left and he'd say, "Do it again," and then he would get on the floor looking up and he would say, "Do it again." And that's how you learn. That's how I learned about angles and things like that. So, again, very fortunate to have those people, again, that were my heroes that I had read about, that I had seen on television, Mr. Electric, oh my gosh. Um, you know, uh, Getting to see those people and have them talk to me as a peer, awesome, awesome experience.
I can imagine. And what obviously these days, fast forwarding to today, there's less magic clubs, and the magic clubs that are out there, they're not attracting younger magicians because a lot of the younger magicians that are getting into magic, it's all taking place on Facebook or Reddit or Instagram or TikTok or wherever it may be. How important is it for somebody who's a younger performer getting into magic in this day and age to go out and actually build relationships with real people in the real world as opposed to just having everything take place virtually? Do you think that sort of personal touch is still important?
Well, as a close-up magician, as a magician at all, I crave that intimacy of experience, of being able to be compelling, to be friendly, to have that instant reaction that comes back to you by working with people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's very important. I can't I have not done any virtual shows. and I just that's doing magic at people, and I would rather do magic with people.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally understand that. Absolutely. And I know there are, I've spoken about virtual shows on this channel. There's some people that have done it and they've done it well. But even the people that have done it well have said, "Oh, well, I can't wait for it to be over. I can't wait to actually start doing live entertainment again." I think that as good as virtual shows are, and as much of a lifesaver it's been for a lot of magicians, there is nothing like being in front of a real live audience.
Very much so.
Mm,
Very much so. Um, unless you have the production value that was part and parcel of David Nixon and Paul Daniels and Wayne Dobson. In the UK, you had magicians all the time on television. In the United States, we had Mark Wilson and we had Don Allen for a short amount of time.
mm,
Um, Mark Wilson, oh my gosh, he's the reason that most people in the United States of my age, I'm in my 70s, um, became magicians because of Mark Wilson. First of all, you fell in love with Nani Darnell. She was a beautiful woman, and Mark Wilson was always in that tux, and then we had the magician television show with Bill Bixby
yeah.
that he was the consultant for. So those shows were very important, and again, very fortunate on the UK side to have somebody like Paul Daniels, to have somebody like Wayne Dobson to look at, and the new people that you've got with Darren Brown and Dynamo, and I remember when Dynamo came to the awards event at the Magic Castle where we made him Magician of the Year, and I mean his eyes were just it was the same thing. It was oh my gosh, I'm here at the Magic Castle. I can't believe that I'm here at the Magic Castle, and
Yeah.
especially getting an award. So
Absolutely. And on the subject of Mark Wilson, quickly, I will say that the Mark Wilson Complete Course of Magic is still, in my opinion, the best book that you can get if you're new into magic and you want a good all-round book that'll give you an overview of every genre of magic.
wonderful, wonderful, along with Tarbell
Yeah,
and the Bill Tarr books.
yeah.
Um, those are excellent. Although my favorite book as a kid was Bruce Elliott's Classic Secrets of Magic
Oh yes, yeah.
and Henry Hayes' Amateur Magician's Handbook.
Yeah.
Um, both of those books, and the series, everything's there. Everything is there.
Yeah, I completely agree. A lot of magicians these days, obviously, they don't like reading books. They're visual learners. Back in my day, when I first got into magic, there was no such thing as visual learner. It was either get a book or that's it. There weren't any options for anything else until a few years later. It was like, well, you want to learn magic, you buy a magic book or you get a magic magazine and you learn it from there. That's your only option. Um, uh, uh, but there are more and more people these days that go, no, I don't read books. Don't read books. I need to watch a DVD or a download.
Well, they like to do it fast and easy, and that's also why we have so many people that are the same performer because they're just copying people.
Yeah,
And yeah, again, I caution people to watch good performers, not watch just performers that are just there. I don't understand that.
I agree. I think part of the problem is a lot of people that are first coming into magic, they're wanting to go down the path of released resistance. They want to be a professional magician, whatever it may be. And the easiest way to do that is to watch and just do the same thing as everybody else. I mean, over here in the UK, that's a big problem. We have so many professional magicians that look identical to each other. It's almost like you've got a machine and you've
Mhm.
put a person in a suit holding a deck of cards and a Sharpie into this machine and you've pulled the button and out come a million people that look exactly the same. There's no personality. It's very generic, and
Well,
they're not.
you want to design yourself so that when people want a magician, they want Craig Petty.
Yeah,
Not I want another magician. I want Craig Petty. I
yeah,
want Paul Green. So, you have to differentiate yourself if you can. Whether it's by costume or by what you do or how you conduct business.
yeah, for sure, absolutely. You mentioned earlier on, before we move on with what we're talking about, you mentioned earlier on about rehearsal versus practice. And
Uh-huh.
you said you had some thoughts on that. I'd love to. I think this would be a good time to ask that because I don't want to forget to ask you that question later on, and people go, "Oh, Craig should have asked that question." It's a very interesting topic. It really is. A lot of people don't really understand properly how to rehearse, how to practice. What are your thoughts on that, Paul?
Well, practicing is practicing the pieces. So you practice the Elmsley count. You practice your double lift. You practice your pass. Um, then when you rehearse, that's where these tools that you've acquired come into play. And it's my opinion, again, very opinionated about this, that when you rehearse, you start at the beginning and you say your lines, you do the trick, the routine as you're going to be doing it for people. And if you make a mistake, you start at the beginning again.
Yeah,
That way you learn the process and procedure of performing. So, uh, practicing technique is practice.
yeah,
Rehearsing is how do I stand? How do I get that out of my pocket? What do I do with it when I'm done? Very well known magician at the Magic Castle. He and I were working together, and he's very well known, and I will not say his name. But he had a question about how do I ditch something, and it was a problem for him. And I just said to him, "You're done with it. Put it in your pocket and step forward." And he goes, "I can do that." I said, "Try it next show." And he did it, and it solved his problem. So, you know, things are sometimes the simple approach solves everything, but
yeah.
you only get that through rehearsal.
Hmm. That's
Make your
very, very
mistakes in
true.
the rehearsal hall.
Very true. I went to see a. I'm not going to name names, obviously, but I went to see about a year ago. I went to see a magic act, and the guy who I went to see, he'd done close up magic, and he booked himself a little theatre, and he'd put on a theatre show. And I went there, and the magic was good, but the problem is he didn't really know where everything was on stage. It was kind of like it felt very disjointed. It felt very under rehearsed. I know it wasn't under rehearsed, but I think what's happened is this person practiced the set pieces. So, right, okay, so I'm going to do this move, then I'm going to do this move. But I don't think had ever gone on stage and laid the props out and said, okay, I'm going to put this here, I'm going to put this here. Right, the first routine's this. So, where's this going to be? It's going to be over there. So, I need to be here. I need this on this side of the stage because then this is going to happen, blah, 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 blah. I don't think there was that element there. So, it looked very disjointed and I think it made him very nervous because he'd practiced, but he hadn't rehearsed in a live venue or set a stage out as if it was a live venue, if you know what I mean.
Well, you need to know about theater.
Yeah,
And that's something, whether you read about it or have a director or you know have someone critique what you're doing and figure out the theatricality of what it is. And that is everything from the smallest close-up miracle to the big stage.
yeah,
Learn how to move, learn how to use your mic, learn how to cross from one side of the stage to the next.
yeah.
So,
Absolutely, absolutely, 100%. Um, Let me change subject slightly. I mean, obviously, you mentioned earlier on when we talked about your career that you've performed in almost every single arena that there is to perform in. And one of the things that I get asked about a lot on this channel, and again, I get so many questions on particular things, but one question that comes up over and over and over again is restaurant magic. How do I get into restaurants? How do I do restaurant magic? How can I get myself a regular gig? Now, as somebody who has been a regular contributor for the Magic Menu, and if you don't know, if you're listening to this and you don't know what the Magic Menu is, it's one of my favorite periodicals. It was it ran for 5 years. It was a monthly magazine specifically to magic in a bar or restaurant environment. And so over the years, there was some incredible magic shared, routine shared, but also some wonderful advice with some incredible columnists. And you were a regular columnist for the Magic Menu. So obviously, you know, when I consider you an expert when it comes to restaurant magic and bar magic and that side of things. Do you have any advice when it comes to restaurant and bar magic about performing in that environment, or how to get the gig or whatever? Any advice? Because this is a question that comes up over and over again.
Well, sure. First question is, do you want to be a restaurant magician, or do you want to be a magician that has a venue to pass your business card out? And I
Mm,
think that that's very important. I worked for over 25 years at a restaurant in Beverly Hills, and my purpose was to pass my business card out. I got paid for working there, but my purpose in working was to, in essence, audition for every party that I ever worked for,
mm,
so that at the end I could give them my business card. And it's interesting, believe it or not, I had a show before the COVID pandemic hit. Somebody had held onto my business card for about 25 years,
wow.
and I got hired for a gig. So that was my purpose. There are many, many performers that are utilizing restaurants as their job, and it's 4 or 5 days a week. Um, I never, ever wanted a job like that. I certainly loved doing magic, but I didn't want to get what I was getting at the restaurant. I wanted to get paid much larger fees, which I was able to do.
Yeah.
Um, First of all, find a restaurant that you enjoy going to. You have to enjoy the food. And then look at the clients that are there. Are they the kind of person or persons that, in my work, are they the kind of people that threw parties?
Yeah.
Are they the kind of people that had corporate events? Were they in town at a trade show? Did they just come from a hospitality suite? That was my market. That's what I looked for. Now, if you're a family performer and you do birthday party shows, you can go to a family restaurant in the United States. We're talking about Red Robin. We're talking about Chili's. Um, family style restaurants.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, you'll see lots of people that go, "Oh my gosh, little Jimmy's having a party. He's 8 years old. You'd be great." Yeah, you would be great.
Yeah.
Whereas if I'm in a fine dining restaurant, a tablecloth restaurant, that's not going to happen.
No.
You know, although you still every once in a while, you're working a very mature show, a trade show for nuclear physicians, and a fellow looks up at you and says, "Boy, my little kid would love that." And you've just done the most difficult magic that you could think of, and it's no, your son at 7 years old wouldn't enjoy that. So, you know, so you pick a place that you like going, pick a place that you enjoy the food,
Yeah.
pardon me. Um, and then I have a couple resources. Scott Hollingsworth wrote a book called Cashing In on Close Up Magic. It's still available. It is one of the most incredible books on getting into restaurant magic.
Hmm.
And his advice, which I took, was go in and meet the general manager. Don't talk to the front desk people, the front of the house. You want to talk to a general manager or you want to talk to an owner. And give them a spec night. Give them a night, say Wednesday. I'd like to come in and show you what I can do between 4 and 6 p.m. Um, and then you go in between 4 and 6 p.m. and you work the heck out of it. And this is the best secret that I will give you. Um, Compliments of Craig Petty. Every gig, every group that you work for, and this is whether it's a birthday party show or a corporate event or whatever. I'm going to give you the one of the big secrets that I think have made me as successful as it has. And in a restaurant or at a party, when you're working, when you finish, as you're thanking your audience for their attention, you ask them to do you a favor. And that's to go to the general manager or to go to the host of the party and let them know that they're having a great time. They've had a great experience at the restaurant because you stopped at their table, because you did magic for them.
Yeah.
And that's better. That's better than, as I said, it's better than a fiver palmed to you because then your boss knows that you've done your job and you've made that guest feel special. And that's the best thing that you can possibly do.
Yeah.
Big secret.
That's huge. And that would make a world of difference 100%. That's great advice. That's great advice because we talked earlier on about flight time and we talked about getting experience. Restaurant magic, performing in restaurants is one of the best places that you can go. You not only, as you say, to give out your business card and get people to find out who you are, but also to get that flight time because you're going to be
Sure.
constantly performing and working in more material, aren't you?
Constantly changing audience. Although, if you're good, they're going to come back to see you again. But never try and sell that to a restaurant owner. Oh, if you have me doing magic, they're going to come back just to see me. No, they're not. They're going to come back because the food was good, service was great, they're celebrating a birthday, and because you happened to stop by their table, you made them feel good.
Yeah.
You made them have a great experience. Another resource is Live at the Jailhouse. That's a DVD series from Cosmo Magic and Real Magic. And if you subscribe to that, it's the best bargain in town. You can get that download for free.
Yeah, well, Cosmo is an amazing guy.
Yep.
I've got all the time in the world for Cos, and I watched at the Jailhouse when it first came out. I'm trying to remember. I remember Justin Miller definitely being on there and Cosmo being on there. Um,
Dan Fleshman,
Dan
myself,
Fleshman, yeah.
Danny Tong,
Danny
uh,
Tong, who has got the
and
best egg bag routine for restaurants in the
and
world.
Garrett Thomas.
Well, the OG, Garrett Thomas, is amazing. He really
Yep.
is.
Yep.
What a yeah, that's definitely something that everyone should check out. Good call. I need to go and watch that again. I haven't watched that in a long time. It's an incredible resource. It really is. And talking about DVDs, Paul, we mentioned earlier on about In the Trenches. What made you decide to bring out a DVD? What made you decide to start publishing material? Because the stuff on that DVD, you see a lot of people and they bring out DVD projects, and it's obvious that there's stuff on there that they've never performed. It's been created specifically for this project. It's not their working material, and then you go and watch In the Trenches, and it's obvious to anybody who's got any experience in magic at all that these are the routines that you are making. You're living off. These are routines that are commercially incredible. You can just literally take the concepts and make them your own. What made you decide to take your material that you have, used throughout your career and just kind of freely give it away?
For that very reason, to act as a seminal beginning, to inspire people to make things their own. I think that my strengths are my presentations, not the innovations of how a trick is done. It's how it's performed. You take a look at the Jeopardy routine, which is a triple prediction trick.
I want
Um,
to I want to pick your brain about that. I'm so glad you brought that up, Paul,
sure.
because I use your Jeopardy routine in at least once a week, if not more. I do it, and I've got my own spin on it, but it's basically the way you presented it. And what you did there is you took Aronson's shuffleboard and you made it your own, and you put this incredible presentation together for it, which, in my opinion, just makes it so much more commercially viable because you've instantly got a hook there that everybody can relate to, and it just makes the whole routine more engaging. And so that's a perfect example of what you're talking about. I guess my question is, how do you do that? How do you make a trick your own? How do you change it? John Gustafaro, who's obviously also a regular at the castle, he talks about this 1 degree change,
Hmm.
changing something 1 degree and making a completely different thing. How do you take something and change that presentation by 1 or 2 degrees and make it a completely different thing that works for you much better than it did when it was originally created for the original creator?
Well, I actually have three different presentations for shuffleboard. Jeopardy is the one that I decided to put on the tape on the DVD. Again, I think it's something that needs to be instantly recognizable, compelling. The concept of everyone participating. Now, I know Jeopardy is not a game show in the UK. So, obviously you changed it for something else,
Yeah.
and that's fine. Look, Aldo Colombini had predictability. Um, Same trick. Aronson's shuffleboard, same trick, with different presentations. So I look for something that is recognizable. I look for something that's compelling. Another great example of that is the card to briefcase, the 007 trick, that's on the tape. And, it's folded card to an impossible location, but it's couched with in my opinion, a very recognizable story that I can sort of play with, and that's James Bond.
Mm-hmm.
And people think about that. People, they fantasize about being a James Bond character, um, and all of the things that a James Bond character would do, including the Q pills that people would take if they fail. And again, the props are compelling because it's a little mini briefcase with a pair of handcuffs on it. So again, that's very compelling. Um, it's not card to match book, although I do a card to match box routine, which is in my notes. Um, but that wasn't something that I decided to publish. And as far as publishing on the DVD, I wanted a record as well of my work.
Yeah.
So, sharing with other people, for them to look at it and for them to say, "Oh, that's an interesting trick. Oh, how am I going to make that different?" Um, the original presentation for Jeopardy that I utilized was about computers and about creativity. Um, Back when computers were first introduced. I had a TI 40, Texas Instrument 40. And prior to that, if you got a good idea, you wrote it down on a little piece of paper, and the next morning you created off of that. My problem was that I wore glasses, and I could never read my writing because I had written it without my glasses. So I figured I'd do it on the computer. So I'd go downstairs and I'd turn the computer on.
Right.
Now I'm waiting for it to boot up. It's taken a long
Right.
time. So, it's recognizable in the sense that here's a problem that everybody that has a Texas Instrument TI-40 with a cassette tape drive on it is going, yeah, takes 20 minutes to boot up.
Hmm.
So, things like that are 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 good. I'm not much of a storyteller, but I try to couch things. I'm not an expository performer. Here's a box. Here's my deck of cards. Um, with this deck of cards, I will shuffle it, and then I will make the card disappear. That's expository. That's not really entertaining. Um, you know, Here, take a card, sign your name on it. That card is now unique. No other card in the world exists just like that. But if I need to find it, I can do it just like this. And that's very compelling. That's very compelling. And that's the kind of impact that I want to have in a presentation.
Yeah. And how do you script that sort of presentation? How do you take a trick and elevate the presentation and make it more engaging?
I think that you need to be in that mode, in that mood to write a script. And when we as performers write a script, it should appear that we are saying our lines for the very first time. I'm a conversational performer.
Mm.
So nothing is, even though I'll say it the same way every time I do it, I'm consistently mediocre, apparently. Some people think that.
Uh,
Um, but it should sound like you're having a conversation. You don't think about a conversation. You react to someone's you react to someone's interaction with you. So, the first thing that you do is get yourself in. Hi, how are you? You're celebrating something tonight. What's going on? Do you know Paul? Paul, it's Paul's birthday tonight. Oh, it's amazing. It's my birthday tonight. Boy, I wish I could afford me to do my party, but they brought me along instead. So, you engage your audience on a peer level, even though you're quote unquote superior because you do magic tricks. Ooh, that's a skill.
That's so true. There's so many magicians that have an ego the size of a planet, and they think that being a magician is the most amazing thing in the world. I totally agree with you. I think that people need to keep their egos in check sometimes.
Well, if you're in your 20s, try and get a date. Tell them that you're a magician. Instant death.
So true. It really is. Oh, that's yeah, very funny. Um, I want to ask you another question. As somebody who specializes in close-up magic, obviously, another question I get that people struggle with, especially people that are newer into performing, which is approaching a group and getting people to listen to you. And I had this come up on the channel just the other day. Somebody said, "Oh, I went and did my first gig, and I went in and I couldn't get people to listen to me, and people weren't paying attention." And I think that especially newer magicians, they spend so much time practicing their trick and okay, what's my opener going to be, and how am I going to move from that trick to the next trick, and they forget that the most important thing when you're performing close-up magic is you've got to walk up to a group of people who don't know you, who have never met you before, and you've got to engage them to the point where they want to stop having a conversation with each other and start listening to you and watching your magic. And that's not an easy thing to do.
Well, I'll tell you my secret, and that's attitude. And my attitude is that what I have to share is of value.
Yeah.
Um, you know, um, Hi, my name's Paul. I'm the magician for this evening. Um, I have something to show you that's unusual. I'll show you something you've never seen before. Um, these are all kinds of lines that you can utilize. Um, you know, um, have you guys ever seen a magician this closely? Um, all of these things are break-in lines, but you have to have the confidence that what you're presenting is of value. If you have any doubt that your ambitious card routine is pedestrian and everyday, no one's going to want to watch it. No one's going to want to see it. But if you walk up and say, hey, let me show you something really interesting. Oh, yeah? What's that? Well, here, take a card. It's a card trick? Yeah, but it's not one you've ever seen before. You engage your audience and you back that up by being confident and taking charge while you're there. Here's my stage right in front of me.
Yeah.
And then the other thing though, Craig, and you and I both know this too, is no matter what, if people are involved and they don't want to see you, it's not because of you. It's because they're doing something that they value more. I did a party many years ago, and this was a reunion party where this group of people had not seen each other in 25 years. The host thought it would be great to utilize me as an icebreaker. I walked in as confident and full of value as everything, and very few people wanted to take a break from the conversations that they were having that they were reacquainting themselves with.
Yeah.
And I went up to the host and I said, I'll tell you what, these people are just having such a great time conversing with each other. You don't need me. So I'm going to excuse myself. No charge.
Wow. Okay.
So, that's reading your audience as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, on the other side of that, you walk into a party, and let's say the party is being hosted by Paul and Judy. And you walk over to a group and you say, hey, Judy asked me to work for you guys. Is anybody going to turn you down if the host or hostess has asked them to?
No.
Hey, Paul told me that you guys were really important. He wanted to make sure that you saw something today. No one's going to turn that down.
No.
No one's going to turn that down.
Nobody.
So you're in. But you better be good. Better be good.
Yeah.
You don't want anybody going to the hostess saying, I can't believe this guy just interrupted. And then he pulled a straw wrapper out of his left nostril and handed it to me.
Mm.
You
Yeah.
know, you can't do that.
No. Yeah. Absolutely. Really great advice, Paul. Let me ask you one other question. One thing that struck me when I watched your DVD was the brand that you created yourself. Now, obviously, your name's Paul Green, and you were using a green pack of cards, and your tie was green, and it was kind of, I don't know if you did that from a branding point of view or just
Very,
stand out and be
very,
unique.
very specifically.
Mm. Was that a conscious decision? Like, okay, my surname's Green, so I'm going to I'm going to play on that with my act. And if that's the case, how can other people do the same thing? How can they
Oh, you want
create
you
that
are you going
unique
to change?
image?
Are you going to change your name to Craig Green?
I'm considering it.
Oh my gosh! Choose a different color. No,
I'll be
I'll tell.
Craig Purple.
I use it as a gag in the show. Um, I'll turn to somebody and I'll point out that I'm using green cards. I have green shoes, a green tie, green rope, things like that. And then I say, well, what's your name? And you would say Petty. And I'd go, well, there is no color Petty. And it's a gag.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, it's very much branded and very much, it can be very expensive to do that. Getting gimmicks and things made. For example, all of my cards are green-backed bicycle cards, and getting things made like a nudist deck or a metal photography deck, um, getting things like that made, very, very costly. Uh, dyeing my rope. The first time I dyed the rope green, it cost me something well over $150. Uh, and then the second time when I went back to have my rope dyed again, I did a card trick for the guys and they charged me 35 bucks. So the lesson is do a trick for the people that are working for you. Amazing
That's,
what you can get.
it's very true, actually. That's something I've learned. Yeah, absolutely. That's really interesting. I imagine that having all of your props and your outfit green, it's very easy for people to remember who you are weeks or months down the line. You can give someone a business card, but if they've misplaced it or they've forgotten it and they're looking for a magician, oh, what was the name of that guy? I was
Oh,
dressed all in green.
the guy with the green shoes.
Yeah, and then
That's
they're gonna come back to you. That's really clever.
cross my fingers and hope that they do.
Yeah, that's great. That's fantastic. Um, Let me ask you one final question, Paul, which is what's next? And let's just assume that this global pandemic is going away sooner rather than later. Obviously, we're in a situation where you've been performing again now, which is amazing. You've had an incredible career, and I don't want to write you off. I'm not saying it's finished yet because it hasn't. But is there anything left on your magical bucket list that you haven't achieved that you'd like to do? Or do you have any goals and aspirations within magic that you want to try and hit in the next, weeks or months or years?
Yeah, I'm not sure I have years left. Um, I've been doing magic. I've been at the Magic Castle for over 50 years. I'm in my 70s now. Um, by no means am I old, uh, but there's younger talent, and sometimes hosts want to have. Oh, we don't want an old man, okay, I'm old, but um, it all depends. I've done just about everything that I want to do. I've worked for very famous people, um, and that's been pleasant. I've worked in venues that are incredible, and that's pleasant. Um, I've been able to uh, I've been able to put a daughter through college just by doing card tricks. So, um, I don't want to be in debt. I'm not in debt. All my bills are paid. Um, I have a granddaughter now, and the best gift I ever got on them, and they are green. So, I'm very happy about that. Our granddaughter is a wonderful kid, and it's it, it, I want to keep working to the point where I'm not able to work or I'm not doing what I want to do. I value the time and attention that is given to me, but it's only because it's worthwhile. If I can't do magic properly, in my opinion, I trust that I will be honest enough with myself to say it's time to retire, or I trust that I will have a group of friends that will come to me and will tie my hands behind my back and say it's time to stop.
Yeah,
So, at this point, I'm a very happy man.
I can tell.
So, magic has gotten me through an awful lot of stuff. So, uh, I'm gonna keep doing it. Uh, I still, I'm still looking for that card to wallet that's gonna make me a star. Don't we
It,
all?
it's out there somewhere. It's out there
Well, I don't
somewhere.
know. I've got about 15 of them, and I'm still looking. That's again, that's the mistake of being immature. That just learning that one trick or that one prop is going to make all the difference in the world. Sorry.
No. Unfortunately, what you've brought up there is most magicians, especially professional magicians, they spend all the time in the world working on the trick and working on learning magic tricks, but they don't spend any time working on the business. And I think that if you want to be a successful magician, if you want to have a career like you've had, it's about show business. You know, there's two words, show and business, and it's as important to put time and effort and focus on the business side of things as it is to focus on the show side of things.
Well, you have to understand business. You also have to be the kind of performer that can say no.
Yeah.
If someone doesn't have the budget for you, your choice to either take the gig or not. But once you take a low paying gig, you're a low paid magician.
Yeah.
So you have to be willing to say no. And the other thing is, and I know you've done this, is that um, your family becomes very important,
Yes.
and they're your support group. So you spend time with your family not doing magic. You spend time with your family having a good time and making memories together. And that's a really important aspect of being alive and being a human.
Yeah, it really is. It really, really
So
is. Yeah,
everybody go and hug your kids.
I completely agree.
Now, if
Uh,
you don't have kids, don't hug a kid.
just grab a random kid off the street and hug them. Yeah,
No, no, that'll get you in trouble.
yeah, probably will. But yeah, I couldn't agree more. The time that I spend with my wife and kids is just uh, incredible. It really is. So yeah, I mean that's probably out of everything you've said and the amazing advice that you've offered, that's probably the biggest take home that anybody could ever have.
Well,
And
I think it's also important to realize that there's more to life than magic,
yes,
you know? Um, Having a good meal with good friends and having a great conversation. Wow. Is that valuable? Certainly is.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. And we've all met these magicians that just work and work and work and work and work and they have no social life because they're just out doing a gig, doing a gig, doing a gig, doing another gig, whatever it may be. You know, sometimes you have to take a step back and realize that life's for living as well as just, as well as working, you know.
Well, the other aspect of it is that many magicians are on the autism spectrum.
I've noticed
They
that, yes.
they don't know how to have a relationship with others. Um, they they don't know how to react except when they're doing magic, and that's a mistake. So go to the movies, read the newspaper, listen to the news, uh, read a book that's not about magic, um, be involved in your community, be involved in being alive.
Yeah, I agree with that. 100%. Yeah. Again, amazing advice. Paul, this has been an incredible interview. Like I said to you when I first reached out to you, I've been wanting to get you on this channel for a while. And I'm really super glad that you found time to come on because I think that the people that have listened to this have had some amazing advice. It's been a masterclass, it really has. And you've dropped some incredible advice that I think would really help a lot of people. So thank you for coming on the channel and for sharing so freely. And thank you for everything that you've done. Like I say, I said it at the very beginning and I meant it. You are one of the good guys in magic. Your performance and your style is incredible. And you've been a big influence on my career.
Well, you're very kind, and I appreciate that. And um, really, if people want to reach out to me, certainly feel free to do so. Um, you know, my advice is my own. May not work for everybody, but I'm certainly available. And if need be, I'll put on my consultant's hat and charge you for it if that's what you need. But I'm I'm pleased to be a part of the magic community. It means a lot to me.
Yeah, and on behalf of Magic, we're glad that you're here. How can people reach out to you, Paul? I'll put something in the description of the video. How can people contact you? What's the best way? Is it social media? Is it an email address? Is it a website?
I'll give you an email address, and it's an old one, so you'll know. It's Paul Green at earthlink.net.
Wow. Okay, that's
So
cool. That's brilliant.
feel free to reach out, and you can find me. Do a Google search. I'm there.
Sounds like the A team, doesn't it? If you
And
can
Craig,
find him.
yeah, you can find me if you want to. And Craig, hey, thank you for letting me do this audibly rather than visually. I'm very appreciative of that as well.
No, that's absolutely fine, Paul. I think that it was important to me to get you on the channel, and if that means that we do it from an audio point of view, I'd rather have you on the channel in this style than not have you on here. So that's not a problem, and I'm super glad that we were able to accommodate you.
Well, I appreciate it. And here's to doing good magic for good people. And, I'm lucky because people put money in my pocket when I do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Guys, this is what I want you to do. I want you to leave a comment down below. I'm sure Paul will see it. I'm going to put Paul's email address in the description down below if you want to reach out to him. I would do. And if you haven't already done so, any lecture notes, anything that Paul has produced, any lectures, or more, and very specifically the DVD that I talked about, which is still available, which is called In the Trenches. Some incredible commercial magic. Whatever it is, go buy it. Go and support Paul. Go and learn from him, because honestly, he really is one of the good guys.
Oh,
So,
and if you want to learn the classic forest, pick up that DVD. That
oh
DVD.
yes, of course, we never even talked about that. Yeah, that's how I learned the classic force on your on the other DVD. Yeah, yeah, I completely forgot about that, Paul. To be honest, but that's how I actually. Not how I learned the classic force, but how I got good at it with your instructions. I don't think that I've never seen anybody that does the classic force as well as you.
Oh, I'm good at it, but there are others that are just as good.
Well, if you want to get really good at the classic force, yeah, yours is absolutely the DVD that people should get, because yeah, it goes through everything that people haven't thought of before. So yeah, get that as well. That's also available from all good magic dealers. So yeah, Paul, one more time, thank you so much for coming on the channel, and I will see you again. Thank you very much, my friend.
I trust that to be so.
Awesome. Guys, thanks very much. I'll see you again soon. Take care.